In my last year on Wall Street, my bonus was $3.6 million, and I was angry because it wasn't big enough. I was 30 years old, had no children to raise, no debts to pay, no philanthropic goal in mind. I wanted more money for exactly the same reason an alcoholic needs another drink. I was addicted. At 22, when I walked onto that trading floor for the first time and saw the glowing flat-screen TVs, it looked as if the traders were playing a video game inside a spaceship. If you won this video game, you became what I most wanted to be: rich.
Money, power, addiction. For 8 years, Sam Polk lived the life of the Wolf of Wall Street. Money, power, addiction. Is it really the ultimate dream?
It was during the crash of 2008. It was a very scary time. All of my attention had been focused above me, on the people that had more than me. And for the first time, it was as if I stood on the edge of a building and looked down and saw the entire rest of the world below me and realized that I had been living an incredibly selfish life. In that moment, I just saw that I had a responsibility to other people, and it was basically a responsibility that I had ignored my whole life. I just decided to make the world a better place.
Sam Polk abandoned the world of finance, left New York, and set up an association in Los Angeles to help the poor. The former trader starts a revolution by adding the word altruism to his definition of life. And he asks the question, is altruism an essential part of human nature?
So, long life to the altruistic revolution. Viva la revolution de altruismo.
To now get only a fraction.
Surely a former trader who is interested in the poor sounds too good to be true. In sharp contrast, broadcast images reinforce our impression of a violent world where universal egoism reigns. But could this be a distorted view? Are these images the true reflection of human nature?
The question is not whether egoism exists, because we know that. That is, we're capable of caring about our own welfare. The question is whether we're capable of caring about others' welfare for their sake and not for our own.
He was the first to crack the theory of universal egoism. 30 years ago, research psychologist Daniel Batson decided to settle the question of altruism in a more scientific way.
When I first began, I assumed the answer to this was, the answer is no. Altruism doesn't really exist.
Daniel Batson launches a series of experiments which will change his mind. Here, a young woman is given electric shocks. The participants in the experiment observe her in front of a screen. They are unaware that she is an actress simulating pain. Surprisingly, when asked whether they would like to leave or take her place, there were some who were ready to replace her.
3, 4, 3, 7.
And yet, a surprising number, when they felt a predominance of empathic concern, the vast majority said, no, I don't want to take the shocks, but I don't want her to take the shocks, and so I'll do it.
And so?
Well, That's consistent with the idea that their motivation was altruistic.
Batson puts forward a possible explanation: the feeling of empathy. Empathy seems to be a prerequisite of any altruistic act. But what is empathy?
Sometimes you'll see someone and they haven't even spoken to you yet, but you already know what's going on. You already know that they're upset, or you know that they're happy. And that's because you're internally resonating, mimicking what is going on with them. So empathy is our innate ability to feel what another person is feeling.
But how does empathy work? An initial response comes from the discipline of neuroscience. Tanya Singer is one of the world specialists on empathy.
Die Frage, die wirklich die soziale Neurowissenschaft ausmacht, ist, wie kommt eigentlich ein anderes Gehirn in mein Gehirn? Also wie mache ich Sinn von meiner sozialen Realität? Wie verstehe ich andere Menschen?
Understanding someone else's feelings, their joy, fear, even their pain. Can this be detected in the brain? Tanya Singer thinks so. While her colleagues snigger and predict that she will only find an empty brain, she recruits a selection of young couples. One partner will be subjected to painful electric shocks in the presence of the other. What will happen in the brain of the person witnessing their partner's suffering?
Wenn ich Schmerz bekomme, dann kommt das Schmerzsignal über unterschiedliche Afferenzen in die Insula und aktiviert eine ganze Schmerzmatrix in meinem Gehirn. Und diese Schmerzmatrix im Gehirn kennen wir gut. Aber was wir nicht wussten, ist, was passiert im Gehirn, wenn jemand anders Schmerzen hat und ich fühle gerade gar nichts in meinem Körper.
To begin with, the researchers monitor activity in the husband's brain whilst he undergoes the electric shocks. They then compare this with when he sees his wife subjected to the same treatment. Tanya Singer compares these two images of his brain.
Sie sehen hier auf diesen Bildern, dass zum Beispiel hier das Rote, was die empathische Reaktion ist, überlappt mit dem Grünen. Das heißt, es sind gleiche Netzwerke, die aktiviert werden, wenn wir den Schmerzen selber fühlen, grün, oder wenn wir in Empathie mit jemandem anderen gehen. Was ich fühle, ist dieses Gefühl, also diese emotionale, aversive Emotion, die mit Schmerz verbunden ist.
So empathy seems to have its roots in biology. This would explain why supporters are so passionate about their favourite team, and why we are so touched by the drama we see on a screen. To suffer or to see suffering is almost the same thing for the brain. The pain of one person becomes the pain of another. Our brains are wired to resonate with others. Identifying the feelings of another is the first step towards understanding their needs and how to respond to them. If this ability is biological and universal, there should be evidence of altruism from a very early age. Is this the case? Here, at the Institute Max Planck in Leipzig, Germany, children are recruited from nursery age to participate in a highly original program of research.
Oh, toll! Ist das nicht schön, mein Bild? Mein Bild, ist das toll. Oh, da bin ich ganz stolz. Oh, jetzt ist mein Bild fertig. Oh, guckt euch mal mein Bild an. So, jetzt bin ich müde, jetzt gehe ich mal schlafen. Tschüss.
Das Bild gefällt mir nicht. Das werde ich jetzt zerreißen.
The sight of a child selfishly focused on the quest for pleasure has long predominated infant psychology.
Das Bild gefällt mir.
Through a long series of experiments carried out on hundreds of children from all walks of life, Michael Tomasello and Felix Warneken are going to shake up a few theories.
Kommt hier hoch. Ja? Guck mal hier. Here you see me putting towels on a clothesline when I accidentally drop it on the floor. While I'm doing that, a toddler is watching. Und hier. Oh! He's 18 months of age. And so the question we had was, will children understand, first of all, what the problem is that I'm having? And then, would they be willing to help? So, da. Kommt hier rüber. Oh. Da kann ich weitermachen. Ne?
I was not expecting the children to be quite so helpful at quite such a young age. That was definitely a surprise.
Guck mal hier, mein Auto.
They're kind of indiscriminately helpful, automatically. They don't care if somebody's watching, they just help naturally.
But these are all situations that are not very costly. So we were wondering if children continue to help when it would be more effortful and costly for them to do so. This time, the toddler is having fun playing in a ball pool. And so the question is, even though the child has fun doing something by himself, would he get up and help?
Even though he is busy playing, the child gets up to help. He is living proof of altruism.
Dann kann ich das auch da rein tun. Genau, mach mal zu. Dann
But where does this act of spontaneity come from? Can it be provoked?
Guck mal, soll ich die hier rein tun? Ja.
Some of the children, we rewarded them for helping in the next trials, and other children, we didn't reward them.
And we observed that children who had not been rewarded before would continue to help at a very high rate. However, those children who had previously been rewarded, they were now less likely to help.
It's amazing finding. They've lost the internal fun of it because you've rewarded it out of existence.
Oh!
So cooperation comes naturally. But how would you go about proving it? The children who were tested were about 15 months old. Education may have played a part. Let's have a look at some younger children in the baby lab at Yale University in the States. Heading up this lab are Karen Wynn and Paul Bloom, a couple in real life, as well as in their scientific work. The originality of their studies has revolutionized our thinking in respect of the very young. To know if a baby can be altruistic or not, one must first ask the very basic question. Can a baby distinguish between right and wrong?
I would give up a month of my life to be a baby for 5 minutes, to experience the world as a baby does, to see the world through a baby's eyes. When you look at a baby, you wouldn't think the baby knows anything. They're so small and so incompetent and so adorable. And the idea that they would be capable of moral judgment at a gut level seemed to me to be unrealistic, seemed to me to be crazy.
So are you going to do some baby science?
How do you find the answers to these complex questions? when babies can't even speak. Karen Wynne has found a solution in the guise of a puppet show. Here, a white dog tries to open a box full of toys. Ethan, 6 months old, is captivated. The blue dog helps him. He is the good guy. Whereas the yellow dog doesn't behave very well.
You see this one?
A lab student who doesn't know how each dog behaved asks Ethan to choose.
Hi, Karen. Which one do you like?
The baby findings are big. They're the vast majority of babies, say 4 out of every 5 babies, choose the good guy over the bad guy. Across a range of circumstances, we must have tested hundreds of babies by now. When we first published the findings, a lot of people were very impressed. A lot of people were very skeptical. And I think many people do believe that babies are perfect idiots. They do believe that babies are blank slates. The dominant view in a lot of psychology is that we start off not knowing much, certainly not knowing much about morality.
Who do you like? That one. Who do you like?
On that particular day, the good guy was blue, but at other times it was yellow. The colour has no significance. The outcome is always the same.
You can get them.
We showed even 3-month-olds these scenarios and found that they orient visually to the nice characters and away from the negative characters. And that really surprised me. I was, thinking, oh, we'll find an age where they don't show these judgments and an age at which they do, so we can talk about when this ability to judge others emerges. And instead what we found was it seems to already be present by 3 months of age.
If a sense of justice and an attraction to good are innate, can we deduce that this is a result of evolution?
What the study of chimpanzees provides is basically time traveling to our evolutionary past. So the logic behind is that if we find a behavior both in chimpanzees and humans, we can infer that probably our common ancestor 5 to 7 million years ago already possessed these traits.
What was really a surprise was that we found that chimps also do some helping. And that was not expected at all. I was expecting them not to care at all.
Chimpanzees would spontaneously go there, pick up the sponge and give it back to her without a reward, without being told to help, also doing it spontaneously. By looking at chimpanzees and children and finding that there are these striking similarities, we can assume that the common ancestor already possessed it, and therefore it cannot have been due to cultural practices alone.
A series of experiments carried out on other animals has shown that cooperation is widespread. In this test, carried out and filmed at the University of Chicago, a rat is imprisoned in a transparent tube. Sensing his distress, a fellow rat comes to his rescue. These studies would suggest that altruistic behaviour is forged during the course of evolution. Yet this hypothesis contradicts the disciples of Darwin, who maintained that the driving forces behind evolution are natural selection and mutation. Is this view too simplistic?
In my opinion, the story of evolution is more complicated than just competition, than just struggle for survival. There's something else really in there which is fundamentally important, and this is cooperation. All of us watching there would feel very anxious about something bad is about to happen. We all would ask the question, what could I do to help? It would be our instinct, actually, we want to help. Maybe we wouldn't know what to do and we wouldn't be the heroes, but we would all want to help. That's already the question for me. Where do these instincts come from? And in my opinion, in my research, these instincts come from the fact that our brain evolved in this context of cooperation with others.
But if cooperation is more effective than competition, why is it not always the preferred option? Why these conflicts which continue to threaten our planet?
One question which often comes up is, if babies are born with a moral sense, with a sense of right and wrong, why are some adults so rotten? Why do we turn out to be such bad people sometimes?
A crucial question. Back to the baby lab for an initial response.
Hi. Which one would you like?
The experiment begins with a very simple choice. The child is asked to choose between two types of cereal. Cheerios.
Which one would you like?
Or crackers.
Do you want the crackers?
The same question is asked of two puppets. Each one is going to make a different choice.
Yum. I like Cheerios.
Which one of the two will the child prefer? The one who has chosen the same cereal,
Cheerios.
or the other?
Isaiah, who do you like? That guy? Okay, that guy?
We found that in our own lab, that babies prefer other individuals who are similar to them, who share their tastes.
This was the case for 8 out of 10 children.
That one. All right.
It's fascinating to see in babies that even distinctions that you shouldn't think would matter a lot. But this is true for adults too. Which sports team you root for, what color shirt you wear, can cause people to split the world into people like me and people like everybody else.
Would dividing the world into us and them lead to the rejection of others? The puppet who prefers the other cereal, namely the one who does not have the same taste as the child, tries to open the box. The blue dog helps him. The yellow one prevents him. This time, the child chooses the bad guy.
Surprisingly to me, they like someone who's mean to a character that has expressed a different taste from the baby's own.
In a sense, most of the evil in the world is caused by our willingness to distinguish between people we care about and people we don't. And this desire to split the world in this way, to split the world into us versus them, shows up very early. It shows up in the youngest babies we test. And it's something which lasts our lives. And it's something that we overcome only with great difficulty.
Creating barriers between us and them seems to be a default setting. Giving preference to some, excluding others, can this division be measured in the brain? Tanya Singer asks herself this very question. In the case of the couple linked by affection, the researcher demonstrated that to suffer, or to see suffering, amounts to practically the same thing in the brain. But what of strangers? Is empathy present in quite the same way?
Wir haben Fußballfans eingeladen, Männer, und haben nur gesagt, Der links von dir im Scanner ist ein Fan von dem gleichen Fußballclub. Und der rechts sitzt, ist jemand von dem Rival Football Team, also vom Gegner-Fußballclub.
What will happen on the sports field, where the gap between us and them is at its widest? Will the fan of the blue team be sympathetic towards the fan of the red team when he receives an electric shock? According to the observer, it is not the part of the brain related to pain which is activated, but rather that of reward. The feeling of empathy has disappeared, making way for a little sadistic pleasure.
Man hat sich sogar gefreut, anstelle mitzuleiden, wenn ein sogenannter Out-Group-Member vom anderen Fußballspiel einen Schock bekommen hat.
I think the implications for society are important. Many of us are worried about racism and prejudice. We start off with very small, narrow groups, my family, my friends. And the question of how to expand our moral circle to make an us that includes everybody is, yes, it's a very important question.
How do we go about expanding the moral circle and so developing altruism? One man knows all about this challenge. He is one of 1,000 others. But this particular man possesses one extraordinary characteristic. His brain is one of the most studied in the whole world.
There's nobody like Mathieu on the planet. He's really absolutely unique person. And the reason is because he's a Buddhist monk. He is a long-term meditator, and so he has done all these practices, but he also has a PhD in molecular biology, and so he knows the world of science. And the most important thing is that he appreciates the world of science and appreciates the importance of science in the modern world.
"40 years ago, Mathieu Ricard left behind a career in molecular biology to become a Buddhist monk. Armed with all the tools he had acquired as a researcher, he set about collecting and analysing all the scientific work which had been carried out on altruism. He travels the planet giving conferences, and the compilation of his work becomes a program of action.
Quel concept pour résoudre ces défis? C'est d'avoir davantage de considération pour autrui, c'est-à-dire l'altruisme. Si vous avez davantage de considération pour autrui, vous n'allez pas jouer au casino avec les ressources qu'on vous a confiées simplement pour avoir un meilleur bonus à la fin de l'année. And if you have more consideration for others, you are not going to ransack that planet that we have. And at current rate, we don't have 3 planets to continue that way. So the question is, okay, altruism is the answer. It's not just a noble ideal, but can it be a real pragmatic solution?
To take action in the world is also the wish of Richard Davidson, acclaimed neuroscientist, distinguished in 2006 by Time magazine as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world. His meeting with the Dalai Lama was set to alter the course of neuroscience.
At that meeting, His Holiness the Dalai Lama challenged me, and he said, look, you've been using tools of modern neuroscience to study depression and to study anxiety and to study fear. Why can't you use those same tools to study kindness and compassion? So that meeting critically changed my life and my career.
Is the kindness and altruism brought about by meditation detectable in the brain? In order to find out, Davidson's team recruited experts who had practiced meditation for more than 10,000 hours. The researchers see an increase in the intensity of gamma waves on the screen. They also note a big difference in the areas which regulate thoughtfulness and emotion.
Very, very rarely do we do an experiment in our laboratory when we can actually see a change in the brain signals with the naked eye. With Mathieu, it was boom! We were able to see it right there with the naked eye, right on the computer monitors as we were recording it. And the first thing we thought is that something must be wrong with the equipment.
The discovery is extraordinary. Mental activity can induce both structural and functional changes in the brain. But isn't this ability reserved for experts in meditation?
Ready to start the first task?
So Davidson and his team recruit ordinary people who have never meditated and whom they train to do so.
Where we showed that only 2 weeks of practice for just 30 minutes a day, so it's a total of 7 hours of practice, was enough to change the brain.
Contrary to the doctrine which has prevailed for years, the brain is a plastic organ which produces thousands of neurons every day in accordance with real-life experience.
If purely mental activity can lead to these kinds of changes in the brain, it became clear, which has become a slogan, if you will, for our Center for Investigating Healthy Minds. Our slogan is, change your mind, change the world. And through that, all kinds of things can become possible.
Comment est-ce que les gens s'imaginent que ces qualités humaines qui sont plastiques, c'est-à-dire qui peuvent changer, qu'elles viennent comme ça, pouf. Ou alors ils disent, ah non, je suis comme ça. C'est à prendre ou à laisser, c'est mon tempérament. Point final. C'est gravé dans la pierre, on n'y touche plus. Ben non, c'est faux. Les 2500 ans de tradition contemplative vous montrent que c'est faux. On peut changer, n'importe qui. On part d'un certain point de départ, on arrive à un autre. C'est pas tous le même. On part pas du même endroit, on n'arrive pas au même endroit. Mais il y a tout un voyage.
Davidson's team proposed just such a journey to young children. A scientific program has been launched in a primary school close to the laboratory.
Start breathing without the rock and see how it feels.
The mental training for adults has been adapted to breathing exercises, as well as to cooperation and the expression of gratitude.
I am grateful that my mom loves I am alive.
And you're alive. All right. And Lillian, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for her because the earth is our family. I'm grateful for Buddy Rabbits living on this earth.
Good job.
At the beginning of the experiment, during a test with stickers, the children only shared with their best friend.
Staying alive in the planet.
At the end of 12 weeks, there was no difference between the best friend and the one they liked the least. The circle had been enlarged.
Children who I never dreamt would want to share in the beginning of the year were really self-absorbed, self-centered for their world. At the end of the year, they wanted to give to everybody. So I think what happens is they're looking beyond themselves. You know, it's not just me. If you think about it, it's not just this child going to school. It's me and going home. It's I come to school. I come to my family at school. I come to my family at the Wiseman Center. Like, you know, it's greater. It's helping them see greater, more of the world, and getting them connected. I am sure that we will see this language, as these children grow, being used steadily.
The town of Madison has asked Davidson's team to extend this program to public schools.
The glitter ball. And what's going to happen to the glitter? Take a deep breath in. Let it out. Is it settled?
There will be a day when children will go to mental exercise classes, where they'll learn to cultivate attention, they'll learn to cultivate kindness, in the same way that physical exercise is done today.
Let it out.
But could this type of program become widespread? Sandtown, West Baltimore, is home to one of the highest number of criminals in the country. 3% of the population are under lock and key. It is a place ravaged by unemployment and drug trafficking, which made the headlines during the April 2015 riots. In this area of relegation, school life reflects the violence on the streets. Yet 3 men have chosen to live here. 2 brothers, Ali and Atman, grew up here, left for university, and then returned with their friend Andy. The 3 men arrived here 5 years ago with a mission to prove the statistics wrong, to put forward a different proposal to the ones currently in practice.
After my first year, we have an opportunity to meet Andy, Atman, and Ali. And they came and introduced themselves and said, hey, this is what we want to do for children. And the principal and I said, what? You want to do what?
Inhale deep through your nose, filling your stomach up with air like it's a balloon.
I ain't had no breathing.
Exhale it all out, pushing your stomach in, pushing all that air out of your body.
Every morning, the entire school, teachers included, takes part in 15 minutes of mental exercise. And they repeat this at the end of the day.
Inhale deep. Exhale it out.
I think the program can help them by giving them the ability to regulate themselves and to kind of block out all the external stimuli, all the stuff that's going on in the neighborhood, all the crime, the drug use, the violence. Instead of being with that, they can learn to go inward and not think about that and have almost a place of peace within themselves.
Don't forget to breathe. So everybody, inhale deep through your nose and raise your heels up.
There's stories of right here north in Pulaski where people would bring out semi-automatic guns and just be firing off and stuff like that. But the kids see stuff that most kids wouldn't see, you know what I mean? Especially at that age. And they have to deal with it, you know? So, and that stuff sticks with you. A lot of people talk about soldiers, you know, having PTSD from coming from war, where I think these kids have PTSD because of what's going on around here. They're dealing with all this trauma and all this stress and stuff like that. So when they come to school and you see Johnny's having a bad day, doesn't want to talk to anyone, it's probably because he saw or experienced something and it's still with him.
I hate this stupid school. Wow. You still ain't talking. You just gonna walk right here on rampage mode all day? I'm gonna let you calm yourself down. You ready? You wanna take a deep breath from me? You wanna take a deep breath from me?
It has truly made a difference in our whole climate and environment. And children are just handling situations differently. Instead of arguing and screaming and yelling about a pencil, they're quiet. They ask what they need, and then they ask teachers for help, instead of just trying to argue and fight it out amongst themselves.
and then redirect your mind back to the breath and sending love to those people that stress you out or cause you to get angry.
Optional courses are on offer every day after school. Around 10 schools in Baltimore have recently adopted the program.
If your body is still, it's easy to keep your mind still. I see you.
A study carried out over 12 weeks at Johns Hopkins University underlines the benefits of the program, which have resulted in an improvement in academic work and a reduction in conflict.
But every time we breathe, we're going to be thinking about all those people that we love, whether it's our family or friends, no matter how far away they live, no matter if they're living or not, love knows no boundaries.
Yeah, it's good.
To dissolve boundaries, to reach the largest number, to translate scientific advances into daily life is the secret desire of every researcher. Tanya Singer has launched the largest study ever undertaken. For 9 months, in Berlin and Leipzig, 200 volunteers follow a program of mental training. From many different walks of life, the participants have one thing in common. They have never meditated.
Das heißt, wir wollen wissen, ob man durch Training, tägliches mentales Training, sowohl sein Verhalten als auch sein Erleben verändern kann. Das heißt, kurz gesagt wollen wir wissen, ob man Stress reduzieren kann, ob man soziale Fähigkeiten wie Mitgefühl verbessern kann und damit Kooperation steigern kann.
Kannst du mich bitte mal reinlassen? Danke.
Irina is a nurse on the premature baby unit in a large hospital in Berlin. When she decided to take part in the study, she had faced the suffering of patients for over 30 years.
Du ziehst raus, ha?
An American study has shown that 60% of healthcare workers are suffering or have suffered from burnout. By provoking emotional exhaustion, stress often becomes a barrier to opening up to others and consequently to altruism.
Und wendet euch dazu bitte eurem Partner zu, dass ihr ein Gegenüber habt.
Trained in different types of meditation, each participant commits to practicing 30 minutes every day. They must also attend the lab every week to undergo a battery of tests. How are the 200 participants going to react and evolve during the course of the 9 months? Will this program of mental training, which offers different types of meditation, allow them to reduce their stress levels, confront their fears, and open themselves up to others?
Für mich ist es eindeutig, also jetzt schon viel Evidenz dafür, dass diese mentalen Trainingsprogramme extrem förderlich sein könnten für die Gesellschaft. Und wir denken auch darüber nach, so ein Resource-Institut zu gründen, damit dieses Protokoll, was jetzt in der Forschung entwickelt wird, für die Gesellschaft nutzbar gemacht wird, sodass es eben zum Beispiel in Schulen angewendet werden kann oder in der Ökonomie, in Business.
But will this kind of mental exercise increase cooperation? This is one of the key questions of this enormous program. A game has been specially devised to address this question. The participants of the study think they are playing a simple treasure hunt. It is in fact their inclination to help others which is being tested. Will they be more altruistic at the end of their 9 months of training? The results of a preliminary study suggest that 1 week of training in kindness has effectively increased their altruistic behaviour. by confronting one's fears, by opening ourselves up to others, couldn't each of us inspire an altruistic revolution? Because one gesture of spontaneous mutual aid is proven to be as contagious as a virus. And how does this behaviour spread through the vast social networks of friends and strangers? This is the question posed by Nicholas Christakis, a specialist in social networks who has just published a most surprising study.
We did an experiment in which we had these college students come into the laboratory. They were given a little bit of money and they were randomly assigned to groups of 4 strangers. Then a bell would ring and they'd be randomly assigned to a new person. Then a bell would ring and they'd be randomly assigned to new persons, and so forth and so on for 6 rounds. And eventually what we were able to show with this experiment is that there's a kind of spread of kindness within the system, such that if the first person is kind to the second person goes on to be kind to the third person goes on to be kind to the fourth person, and the fourth person goes on to be kind to the fifth person. You could show that how the fourth person treated the fifth person depended on how the first person treated the second person, even though neither of those 2 people ever saw these 2 people over here. A kind of cascade of kindness through the system. How I treat my friends depends on how those people treat their friends, even though neither I nor my friends ever saw or interacted with those people. Like a kind of social contagion, mimicking a biological contagion.
So if you think about it, when you're doing an act of kindness for someone else, you're not only helping that person, you yourself are also helping yourself because you're feeling better, but also everyone who observes you gets impacted. And they in turn are more likely to go and help someone else. So you're creating a chain reaction of goodness.
Is it too utopian of you to imagine that such a chain reaction of goodness could propagate itself in any environment? Is altruism in any way compatible with modern economic systems? Here at a meeting of the World Economic Summit in Davos, the big cheeses from the world of finance meet to ponder the world of tomorrow and finalize agreements in utmost secrecy. Mathieu Ricard is officially invited to take part, as are Richard Davidson and Tanya Singer. The teasing, which surrounded the first brain studies of Buddhist monks, is but a far distant memory.
So if you look at the mind, look inside, and say, well, you would think, kind of achieve a little more calm, stable, clear state of mind.
The monk and the researchers do not as yet have access to the great amphitheatres, but they do fill the small halls which have been reserved for them. And they fully intend to benefit from this unique gathering of economic leaders to communicate their latest scientific results. Now in Davos, we shift from standard speeches on the means to safeguard economic growth to the praise of compassion. And no one seems surprised.
It is better to have short meditation but regular and repeated. Parler ici 4 minutes sur l'altruisme ou sur réduire les inégalités, je ne vais pas y avoir de plus grands impacts. Ça vaut mieux que parler à Joseph Stiglitz. Si vous voulez, les cultures ne changent pas comme ça du jour au lendemain, comme on change le taux d'intérêt des banques. Mais le fait que quelque chose devient non seulement pas une excentricité ici, qu'on se dit, il y a un truc sur la méditation, bon, mais que ça devienne presque normal, puisqu'il y en a une tous les matins, et que personne, les gens disent, c'est sympa, ils ne se disent pas qu'est-ce que c'est que ce truc complètement ridicule. Symboliquement, c'est quand même, on se dit, bon, il y a peut-être un petit quelque chose. So in a way, to be excessively self-centered is a lose-lose situation. Everyone is miserable in the end, and to open one's mind, extend that benevolence is a win-win situation.
That we can actually do better. We can train our minds. We no longer should think of well-being as just something that occurs willy-nilly, but it is something that can be learned. I think that simple truth is something that needs to be spread in whatever ways we can do it. In my heart of hearts, I'm a scientist. I'm passionate about doing science. I love doing science. But science alone is not enough. We're not going to change the world by doing one more experiment. It's going to require other strategies in addition to science. The science is necessary, but it's not sufficient.
Mindfulness is not something which just makes you more ambitious, more speedy, more efficient. Then you would have, I think, misunderstood the dimension of mindfulness, which is much bigger.
I think the pursuit of selfish happiness is a recipe for failure. It makes your life miserable. You're me all day long.
We are working towards a new model, backbone model of economy, which is replacing Homo economicus towards what we call a caring economy.
So some kind of a relief, if that were.
With mental training, you can change your intentions. So instead of being, motivated by power or achievement or, like seeking grasping system, or by threat, which is another motivational system, you can be motivated by affiliating and care.
We build school with bamboos. In 3 months, you build a school for 2,000 kids for $150,000. You want to make a school? I'm your man. 2,000 children.
With
Go
bamboos,
for it.
with bamboos.
And all with bamboos. 100 teachers. It's amazing. In 3 months, it's done.
And cost, how much?
$150,000 for 2,000 children. Ok. Bon, ça marche pas toujours. Hein?